Namaste, hello everyone. Welcome to my NPTEL course on interior design. Today we are going to talk about case studies and examples in lecture number 4, and we will see some very interesting projects. So for contents, I have today some residential building projects, luxury interiors, low cost interiors, an outdoor cafe, some international commercial projects in India, and some references. Let's see some residential building projects first. So this is Four Leaves Villa and the architects are KIAS. It's a Japan-based project, and to just give the idea of the area, it is 225 square meters in area and the year of construction is 2018. And it's located in Japan. It is, in the middle of a forest, and it's a very, very interesting sort of a retreat, which capitalizes on the natural environment at a mountain retreat, which is 150 kilometers away from Tokyo. And what you see over here, interestingly, is that there are roofs which are designed as curved surfaces, like gently twisted leaves. And this gives a very interesting form to the overall, built form. And there is a combination of concave and convex roofs that we see over here. And again, it's like, overall very interesting and very sort of full of mystery. Until and unless we are in the space, it's difficult to understand whether it's compact or expensive. But the overall form itself is quite mysterious and interesting. These are some of the images of the project. And I find these wooden joists very, very interesting. So there is this series of wooden joists which is exposed, on the ceiling, and it gives some kind of a dynamism to this entire space. And there is this very interesting character the living space acquires because of this dynamism. This is the site plan, and we can see again the dynamism in terms of, the way the blocks are placed. And I always talk about interior architecture, which begins, from the site planning. So we will be talking about projects in terms of interior architecture, and we will try to see some structural details all the way to some maybe decorative panels. But it's like an entire package, like we always say, why interior architecture and not as much interior design or interior decor. So the site is treated very interestingly over here. And this is a scale model, which itself is like a, delight to watch. There is another project which is the container house. It is in Brazil. It is 60 square meters and it's from the year 2019. So this is quite compact. And here what has happened is that the architect has tried to transform the shipping containers into a very, very modern and functional house. And the time frame for elaboration and execution of this model of construction is quite small, quite clean, fast, dry, and within the 100% reuse of materials. So there are like, two 40-feet containers which are attached alongside, and there are spaces which are generated. So living space, kitchen space, laundry, a comfortable bathroom, etc. So it's a example and demonstration of reuse. And we see a lot of use of shades of white. Again, it makes the space look quite expensive and big. So that's again a strategy by design. And the house has very interesting external area which is very, very pleasing, and it has this sort of a bench which is sculpted in Brazilian granite, and on top of it there are 204 identical stone plates which sort of frame this spiraling impact on that. Then there is this YAO residence, and this is in Thailand. This is 1300 square meters, quite big compared to the previous projects, and this is 2019. And again, the site placement, the overall landscape, and the way the built form is shaped in terms of the mass and void and the punctures and the fascia of the entire building blocks, that's very, very interesting. And there is a profound emphasis, on the courtyard. And we are talking about this interior architecture vocabulary. So again, focusing on the courtyard, the play of light, the and shadow, the entry of the sunlight, and when the rain falls, the falling of rain and its sounds, etc. All of those sensory experiences have been sort of captured over here, and this sort of forms the center of the building. Some more images, like a very huge floor plate with these nice views outside, the pebbles, the entire setting, the stepped seating, all of those interesting dimensions through which this entire space is designed. And continuing with the interior architecture vocabulary and the expression, that we get in a space through different elements that we put together, it becomes very, very important that the entire structure is also thought about. So, again, in terms of like thinking about an interior space architecturally, thinking in terms of structure, thinking in terms of the overall planning from site all the way to the coasters kept on the table. So that's interior architecture, and that's the demonstration over here in this project. Some more images. Then there is this another project which we are talking about today. This is Acalco House, and it's Mexico. It's also compact, 90 meters square, 2017. And here, if you see again, it is such a compact space, but again utilizing the settings of the site and very interesting sort of utilization of the surrounding space and closeness to nature and the kind of retreat. So like it's a holiday home, and therefore we see this kind of a setting more so meaningful for this kind of a project, completely disconnected from the city, in the middle of the nature. And it works as a resting space actually, so it's close to impressive cliffs and it's a very interesting space. And another important aspect is that the construction is based on solid quarry block walls, and there are mud floors over here and these block walls that we see here. And there are lots of materials which are used here, and they are preserved in their natural, state. There is also a use of wood and glass. So the material palette is very interesting, and there is an attempt to preserve the materials in their natural state. Then some of the luxury interiors we can see over here. This is a project, Mission Hills in Canada, and it has some very interesting features. Now, actually what is happening here is that the ceiling heights approximately 9 feet, and they exclude like low headroom areas due to mechanical systems, and therefore the ceiling dropped areas. So whenever we talk about these mechanical systems and servicing, because of that, the height of the ceiling gets impacted, of course, and therefore we have to design in that manner. And they have used baseboards throughout this home, which are almost like 5 inches, and they are complemented by sort of 3 inches casings, on windows, doorways, and flat arches to give a sort of a design vocabulary and definition. So, again, to consider some of the interior features, interior doors and trim to be painted white was a decision. Interior walls also to be painted like off-white, so these are sort of shades of white. Then natural oak veneer stairs. So in the lecture where we concentrate on material timber, we are going to understand the veneers, the laminates, etc. So there is a natural oak veneer stairs, and then there is also the application of natural oak, pickets and handrails. So these are some very, very interesting features and design elements that we see over here. And of course, to get a good oak veneer finish is sort of a luxury. So in that sense, these are some superior interior features that we see in this project. There is also a dual panel square interior door and rather doors within this project with executive style complementary hardware. So even hardware design is an important aspect when we talk about interior architecture. So they have been taken care of. The interior doors are dual panel squares, and they are also very interesting. There is like a smooth ceiling, and it's seen everywhere throughout the first floor. All the ceilings that we see there on the first floor. Second floor, third floor, and the finished basement areas, they were to be stipple spray with smooth borders, except lavatories and laundry areas, which have smooth ceilings. So this was a kind of design vocabulary which was, sort of established by the designers. There are some convenient closet organizers over here. There is an electric fireplace which is interesting. When we specifically focus on doors and windows with more level of detailing, there are oversized casement windows throughout which give a very interesting character. All windows, they have vinyl low E, and they are argon gas filled. So these are also very technical details in the field of interior design. We try to have like low volatile organic compounds. We try to have more finishes which are, better suited to health and so on. So we have that in one of the modules where we talk about green interiors. Then there is an insulated front entrance door which has a magnificent glass insert detail, and it looks quite aesthetic. The entry door from garage to house, with self closer. So this is another detail that was worked out for this kind of a project. So there are oversized casement windows that we were talking about in the previous slide also. There is vinyl sliding patio door with screen, or a double door. Those kinds of details are also here. Executive style front door grip set. These are like all very interesting details. So when we talk about interior design projects, we must include what kind of window it is, what kind of material is being used, what kind of finish do we see over here, is there any kind of paneling, are they sliding or not sliding, is there any hardware detail that we see. So all of these details have to be worked out, and therefore interior architecture drawings are also quite demanding. So when we see interior design drawings and representation techniques, there we will probably discuss some of these. So it is like, God is in the details. The drawings have to be like really elaborate with each little detail, all inventories, all door window schedules, every kind of small to big detail has to be given along with the specification, material detail, dimension, everything. And so like in the case of tiles, we will see whether it's a herringbone pattern or what is it. So all those things we have to put together when we are producing the interior architecture drawings. Then there are also some exquisite floor finishes that we see in this project. So there are ceramic or porcelain tiles and there is oak flooring. We will see some of these when we talk about the tiling. And there are also some non-tiled areas, and they have very interesting custom made and exquisite carpets. There are also some very interesting bathroom finishes which are very very luxurious. There is freestanding tub, there are ceramic wall tiles, there are separate shower stalls which are used over here. There are also very interesting light fixtures and frameless glass enclosures that we see in these bathrooms in this kind of a project. There is also a dual shower head that we see in the room, and then it's repeated in several rooms. Also there are premium single lever faucets that we see in bathrooms. There are soaker tubs that we see over here. So these are all meant for luxury finishes and sort of just being relaxed and having some interesting details. There are some finishes that you see over here also in case of the vanity. So there are oversized vanity mirrors in all bathrooms, and they are very very important and interesting finishes. Also we see in the laundry, some kind of interesting details, whether it's the tub or the faucet or even the heavy duty wiring and the vent for the dryer that we see, even that has very interesting finish. So it requires a tremendous amount of detailing for a project like this. Then there are gourmet kitchen finishes over here. We see very custom designed carpentry and cabinets, and we see some interesting stainless steel kitchen sink over here, and again some kind of very interesting hardware, plumbing equipment. All of them have some kind of a very very premium luxury finish. Like I was talking about plumbing, dishwasher, sink, cabinets, storage units, and the kind of finishes that have been adopted for them, even the countertops, they have been chosen with great care. Now, completely contrast to the luxury interiors, we are now going to talk about the low-cost interiors, and there are some examples from India, specifically Rajasthan, Gujarat, Uttar Pradesh, maybe there is an example from Uttarakhand also, if I remember correctly. So this is, one house which is from Rajasthan and specifically Jodhpur, very, very famous typology of residence. And again, low cost in the sense that there are locally available materials. It's done by the community. It's very, very, climate responsive and quite documented and decoded and understood in terms of passive design features, but also the overall form and the aesthetic in terms of surface finishes and wall finishes that we see over here. That's also very interesting. Then some kinds of paintings that we see in Rajasthan, all sorts of houses these paintings or wall finishes done by communities. Some of them are called as Mandna paintings, which are done by women. And this is from a house, in a village near Jodhpur, again in Rajasthan. So basically, they are not just for aesthetic, they are also, anti termite. They also provide some kind of an insulating layer. They also look very beautiful and they are very cool to touch at. So these are very, very interesting details from low cost community based housing interiors from, India. This is another example, and that we see over here. We see a lot of geometric designs, sometimes non-geometric designs, motifs and patterns on these houses. This one is from Jaisalmer, and it uses some beautiful color pigments, and these get accentuated against the backdrop of, of white. And some more examples, and it's not just wall finishes and surface finishes. Low cost interiors can also be achieved in terms of other details, specifically focusing on materiality, using something like ringal, which is a species of bamboo which is found in Uttarakhand, or some kind of recycling of material, or procuring some materials which are available nearby, and then trying to create some kind of interesting designs out of it. So it could be in terms of materiality, it could be in terms of the scale, it could be in terms of who are the stakeholders. Is it done by the community themselves, or is it done by someone who is formally trained in interior architecture? All of that, all of those factors are also important, but typically these are all low cost interiors which are very, very functional, which have elaborate, interesting forms, and they are quite aesthetic. This is another one, Barmer, again in Rajasthan, and again a beautiful, use of color, surface finishes, the kind of forms, geometry, definition at the entrance, and sight lines leading to the interiors. So again, interesting spaces. This is a restored Haveli, and this is near Jaipur. This also has very, very interesting details in terms of the material that is used, the kinds of furnishings, textiles, floor pattern, etc. So this is again an interesting example. This is also a Haveli which is restored to its original state, and here also we see a very interesting color palette, the kind of finishes on the walls, the vernacular furniture, and the elements which are synonymous of critical regionalism and a very, very distinct style of interior architecture. This is another one where we see this pink finished plaster over here, and a very, very beautiful hand beaten brass bathroom sink, and which adds, amazing contrast and, detail to this space, and the eye catches the attention because of this kind of a detail. Another project here where we see, details of timber on the ceiling, interesting utensils, the arrangement of the objects in the space, the kind of detail over here on the furniture pieces, and the kind of color scheme that we see over here. And all the furniture has a very, very distinct vocabulary. So this is from Gujarat. This is a traditional pole house, and this is also a very interesting piece of interior space. This is another one which, where there is a traditional mud floor over here, and there is also a contrasting, magnificently painted ceiling, and again a very interesting furniture piece over here. And this is also from the pole house in Ahmedabad, and this furniture is very distinct, and we don't normally have these pieces of furniture readily available in the market these days. So it's very interesting to document and study these pieces of furniture. Professor Jay Thakkar from CEPT is already doing this very amazing project where he's documenting the vernacular furniture from across India. And we at IIT Roorkee are also trying to do this, for the state of Uttarakhand, and we are slowly building on that. So a furniture piece or the set of furniture has a profound role within an interior space, and it's very important to sort of document these kinds of, furniture items, or sort of have a catalog, or understand the evolution in history or influences from different styles or different people who came to India and brought these styles with them, and vice versa. This is the kitchen area. Again, we see, very interesting traditional brass cooking utensils, and they add a lot of interesting, you know, play in this entire space. So It's not just the structure, but also the surface finishes, the decorative items, the utilitarian items, and the overall composition that is achieved by their placement that creates an interior space. And these static items could create a dynamism by the virtue of where they are placed at what eye levels, and what are placed in the front and which are placed at the back, and so on. So composition matters a lot. This is another project which is very interesting, and what is interesting over here is that the materials are actually reclaimed and then they are sort of repurposed here. This is also an example from the state of Gujarat, and I like this project. Another one again from Gujarat, where we see mud reliefs, we see mirror work, we see very, very interesting indigenous style of interior architecture, which is very representative of Ahmedabad and Gujarat. The Bhunga style of interior architecture, the Bhunga houses, they are quite known and extensively talked about. So this is that example. Some more images of that. This is another project. This is Dehradun, Uttarakhand, and here we see colonial style bed and traditional blinds over here. So this is also very interesting detailing. Then there is this outdoor cafe. This is Triveni Terrace Cafe. It's one of my favorite projects. This is in New Delhi. This is designed by Stein, a very famous architect, and it's actually a part of Triveni Kala Sangam, where there are lots of cultural events that happen, the exhibitions that are being put up. And it's a very, very interesting space, modern architecture style, use of interesting jali patterns, very interesting play of light and shadow. And this cafeteria specifically is very interesting. So, these exposed concrete finishes against the landscape green, that's very, very interesting. And from here there is a view to the OAT and outside seating, and this is the interior, and from here we are looking towards outside. So there are both kinds of seatings, inside and outside. And there is also this interesting use of bamboo, and we see these exposed concrete beams and structural details, and bamboo and concrete sort of form this very interesting vocabulary for this entire cafeteria. There are some international commercial projects where we can see interesting interior architecture details, like this one, which is a museum, and it's 1,000 square feet. And here the primary desire was to be ecological and how to have more accessible spaces. So it was very interesting. And the renovation was done for men's and women's facilities, and there's a lot of attention given to the children, so baby changing tables, diaper disposal, etc. Those important aspects were really taken care of. And there are very interesting plumbing details, very interesting fittings, and there is an attempt to have a very minimal use of water and to be very ecological and to be very, very responsible in the usage of resources. There is also this interesting, Great Arezzo floor, and it's a contemporary take on the 1933 Wings original brown version, and that has been used here. So functionality and aesthetics, they go hand in hand in this project, and it's used by a lot of people, including school groups. So it's designed with a lot of care. Then there is Hotel Okura. This is a Tokyo-based project, and it has these interesting exterior, horizontal forms. And there is this also, the juxtaposition with the garden, and that's an interesting placement of modern material and the landscape outside. I also find this very interesting detail, the elevator doors which have the surface finishes with the silk and textiles. There is a bamboo grove outside, and there are paper window screens, and very beautiful space over here, very elegantly designed and composed. And there is also, the pine cladding. There are structural columns which have these kinds of claddings that we see over here. So these material details make all the difference. We also see these pendant fixtures, they mimic the shape of beads, which are popular from ancient Japan, and they were found in Japanese tombs. And they are used here in a very metaphoric and interesting manner. There is a patchwork wall that we see over here, which again incorporates the silk brocades and some interesting textiles dating as back as 13th century. So this again is a fusion of traditional and contemporary design, and very sensibly using these elements and not sort of diluting their importance or not sort of creating unpleasant appearance out of them, but giving them a lot of respect and creating a very interesting design vocabulary out of them. Again, we were talking about the profound use and importance of hardware, in interior architecture projects. So we see over here doors, and they have like metal pulls, and they are also very interesting and eye-catching elements. There are also leaded glass panels, and they adorn this entire orchid bar in this project. I love these hammered copper sconces, and they are very interesting texture over here. And then also the difference in the color because of the way the lighting is designed. And again, there may be also the difference in the gauge of copper or the sheet of copper that is chosen to create this kind of design vocabulary. This is screen, which is a cedar screen, and it is designed to give an appearance of a hemp leaf pattern, and this also looks like quite aesthetic over here. Then there is also use of shells, and these shells, the shells lining a screen in this Orchid Room restaurant also looks very, very fantastic. These shells over here. We also see a wall in the lobby where there is this world clock, and it has been interestingly put in place over here. And I also like the use of colors that we see in this space along with the lighting that has been designed. And there are more images and more details over here. There is a cloakroom which is put next to a newsstand, and there are very interesting details. There is a shop in the basement, and more of these material aspects and ceiling details and these furnishings over here that we see. Some more images from the project. Very interesting and nicely designed project. Then there's a commercial project from India, and this one is in Gurgaon, and this is a couture showroom. And here again there is very interesting use of material palette. So there is a rough Gwalior stone, there is antique woodwork that we see over here. It's the stone over here, pieces of wood, antique furniture, and there is wrought iron grill, and there are wooden windows. There is this interesting installation of spinning wheels, and there is this yarn that comes out of these wheels, and then it extends and expands in space to create this sort of an interesting element of design. So those kinds of installations are also interesting over here. Again, elements like door handles, other hardware elements, also the signage and identity design, everything put together. Plus the way the original patina and the finish of materials has been explored to the best advantage. That's also very interesting to see in this project. And there is a lot of attempt over here to highlight, make in India. And there is this entire vocabulary where Indian designs or indigenous designs are being highlighted. So it's an interesting project that way. Another one is Brick School of Architecture, Pune. This is also an interesting interior architecture project, which does get inspiration from the vernacular architecture of old city of Pune, but it's also put together in a contemporary manner. So again, a very interesting fusion. And its multi-purpose spaces are seen here, which are designed very elegantly. There is a series of courtyards which is connecting the studios, overlooking the corridors, and it creates a beautiful imagery and a very interesting series of sensory experiences and user experiences while one navigates from one space to another. So these were only very few projects. There are actually many that can be discussed, and I'm sure in other lectures during other modules we will also see many other examples and images and case studies. I'm just going to leave all of us with this thought by the very famous Charles Eames. The details are not the details, they make the design. So God is in the details, and details are very important to create remarkable designs that register us. We will be seeing the summary in the next lecture for the last few lectures that we discussed. and these are some of the references that you may find useful. And if you have to look further for these projects and more details which I could not cover due to the restriction of time, thank you very much. I'll see you for the next lecture.